been like sitting here today knowing that I need to record and produce something, whether it be political or geek related. I thought about Marjorie Taylor Greene, but it's kind of obvious that she's crazy. If for anyone who doesn't know who she is a representative in Georgia who recently won in 2020, who believes in the QAnon conspiracy, as in the Democrats have a secret cabal. It's a cult, but the Democrats have a secret cabal where they drain the blood of babies and drink it, all or something like that. It's so stupid. It's not even a fun conspiracy. And how she's a Sandy Hook shooter denier, and let's see. There's so much about Marjorie Taylor Greene. She is insane. She's a Looney Tune. Tried to impeach Joe Biden on the first day. God, she's... Oh, and what was it? California wildfires occur because of Jewish space lasers. I wish I was creative enough to make that shit up, but... Anyway, I'm talking about education instead. It's been on my mind. Free public college should be a thing. Absolutely no reason why in, 32 of 33 developed countries that we're the only one that hasn't made it work, along with, like, healthcare. Our private system of healthcare is not working, but our system with public college really isn't working. And there's no reason why there shouldn't be free public college. Absolutely no reason. I mean, I've heard the arguments, but they're kind of weak. For instance, how are we going to pay for it, Jarrett? Jarrett, how are we going to pay for it? Jarrett, how are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it? Taxes? How else do we pay for this stuff? How do we pay for the military? Like, how do we pay for all the shit that we bail corporations out, or where we put money into? Why wouldn't we put money into education? Oh, there's a lot of reasons why they wouldn't want money to be put into education, but that's how it's paid for. It's access to education. It's not. It's free at the point of service. Like, oh man, people's lives would be made so much easier if we could give free education. For instance, like, it's not as though poor people have much of a creative choice on whether or not they can go to college and make it affordable. You have people that save money for literal decades for their kids just so that they can go to college, hopefully without going into debt. But a lot of times, if you want to stay in college and you can't afford it, you pull out student loans, the number one form of debt that there is in the United States. Whoa. All that just to be able to go to school and spend the rest of your life paying for it. And the payments aren't small either. Like, the minimum that I've seen is about $250 per month, which is really good. Like, student loan debt isn't worth it. Like I said, it's the number one form of debt in the United States. Not to mention, it doesn't allow people to actually contribute to the economy. If you're paying $250 per month, that's $250 less in your pocket. And even if the taxes go up and you could be like, well, you're still, like, paying back the government if the taxes increase. If it happens, if it did, it'd be very minimal. Maybe a fraction of that percentage of 250, which, like I said, is a very generous amount that, not a generous amount, generous of the Fed or private banks to be like, yeah, this much per month, that should work, with the, not talking about interest or banks wanting their money immediately. So, yeah, how are we going to pay for it? It would be typically through taxes. And it's not like you couldn't pay for it, because it's just like, we can't afford that. We can't afford that. We can't afford that. I don't know if many of you are aware, but in 2017, the United States Congress approved, so both the Senate and the House of Representatives, approved a military budget increase of $80 billion per year. And at that time, when it was approved, it would have made it $718 billion total that the United States is paying on its military alone per year. Let's not just dismiss the recent $22 billion that was approved as well, 2018 or 2019, something like that. Even though I understand a lot of it was going to the not Vietnam veterans, it was going to, oh my God, I can't think of the military healthcare and what that's called. Fuck, the VA. I understand, like, a good portion of it was going to the VA, maybe about half of it, but neither here nor there. Point being, there was a study that came out years ago, and I wish to goodness I had that study on me. I looked it up years ago, a few years ago, but it determined that to pay for everyone in the United States to get free college, it would cost $73 billion. Like, just tuition, everything covered. So just think about that. Like, we had 80 billion approved for the military alone. So imagine spending $73 billion and then having $7 billion left over to go to social programs or wherever you want it to go. And even then, like, I'm not even saying, like, stop funding the military. I mean, I am, but that's not the point. Since I don't want more money going to the military-industrial complex. Not to mention we have the biggest military in the world. I've ranted about this a huge shit ton of times, but another way that you'd be able to pay for it is if you close those financial loopholes that corporations get in terms of taxes. So that alone would be able to allow people to pay for it. So that's how you're going to pay for it. Taxes, the way it works. Now, why would you? What it would be worth? What would it be worth putting that money toward free education? Like, well, first off, it benefits literally everyone. Like I said, if you're poor and you need to pay for school, you have very limited options in being able to pay for it. You know, you're not going to have mommy and daddy just paying you out. A lot of people have to pull out student loan debt. But not to mention, it has a very big socioeconomic impact. For instance, if you go to, like, Norway, Sweden, Germany, Spain, plenty of other countries that have access to, I almost said healthcare, access to an education. For one, you have a more educated society, which I don't see that as a bad thing at all. Hey, poor people, why don't you understand why you're poor? You know what'll help you understand that? Going to college. Why don't you learn about your institutions? Like, it's very limiting, and most poor people who want to go to college still stay poor because they can't afford to go to college. They have to join the workforce. And to each their own, if they want to join the workforce, that's not a problem. That's not what I'm saying. But people are very limited in their options in paying for college, and usually paying for college isn't just those 4 years. It's for life. But it would help minority communities too. Oh yeah, like, I can already imagine Latin American communities or black communities being able to benefit from education alone. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know there's grants and all that stuff and schools look for other races to put for their diversity quota or whatever. That's not good enough. They still have to pay for it. I don't know. I think it would be great for minority communities to be able to, I don't know, have access to education and be able to, I don't know, educate themselves so that they can, I don't know, elevate themselves. Crazy. And it would just have a positive socioeconomic impact overall. It's not going to get rid of racism. I'm not saying anything as ridiculous as that. I'm just saying it would elevate these minority communities who have been pressed down by society for literal centuries. Like, when black people were free from slavery, it's not like we gave them money and said, okay, figure it out. It was just like, okay, you're free, figure it out. And a lot of those communities stay poor. And a lot of those communities are respectfully less educated. And it's not their fault. They don't have access to it because they haven't been given access to that education. I hate the word access because it's used for healthcare, but like they're not given the opportunity, excuse me, for education and being able to elevate themselves. Like it would just be great overall. And I just want a more educated society. I don't know if you've been in the United States recently. We had a psycho in the office for 4 years. We have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I mentioned earlier, as a representative in a position of power. Like being able to analyze how these people get into a position of power. Usually it's from people who are less educated and more susceptible to character traits rather than the logic behind how these people think or their policy positions. So another thing is like pay for student loan debt. There's no reason we can't pay for it in the richest country in the world. Well, these kids, they need to learn financial responsibility. Student loan debt is an overall positive. And I hear this from boomers who paid like next to nothing for college. I'm exaggerating, of course, but they paid very little compared to what's being paid for now, and they're financially responsible. Crazy. Not all of them, of course. I'm being generous, but you understand what I'm getting at. It's like, oh, well, they need to be financially responsible. Like, well, if they're in debt, being financially responsible is a little bit more difficult. So that's just dumb, especially because you can go to school to learn about finances. It should be taught in K through 12 anyway, like at the high school level. I don't know why you wouldn't learn about budgeting, but we don't have that here. Right, United States, America, fuck yeah. And here's one of the funniest positions I've heard. It's usually from people who are of a higher economic status, being like, I don't want to pay for other people. Imagine your tax dollars going to college kids and they party all the time. Oh, they don't do that with student loans, do they? Fucking dumb. I'll pay for my own kid to party, but I'm not going to pay for other kids to party, even though partying is part of the college experience. Fuck, the people who say that probably partied a lot too. Like, I paid out of pocket those 52 cents to go to college. I had the occasional party, but I just can't do that for everyone else. Fucking so stupid. Kids are going to party anyway, regardless of whether or not your taxes go into it. Not to mention if kids are given grants or any sort of government subsidy, your tax dollars are going to them for partying anyway. Whoa. It's such a ridiculous argument. Especially it's just people saying like, hey, people want to go to school so they can be more educated. Well, then more people are going to want to go to school. Good. Like, why is that an issue? Well, the schools, universities that they want to go to are going to get more congested. I mean, they're congested in the system as it is. San Diego State has been, like, that's where I went, San Diego State University. They have literal thousands of applicants, and they have to narrow it down. I think one year they had 33,000 applicants, and they had to narrow it to 3,000. I might not have those numbers accurate, but the point is that there was like it was a small fraction that they chose. So first off, that doesn't matter. But also, like, just being able to have the opportunity to go to a university, like, it's there, it's open, you can choose to do so because your government helps supply it. Your society is giving back to you when you give to it. Not to mention, not everyone wants to go to college. But isn't like, I don't understand the argument of being like, well, if you give everyone access to be able to go to college, you're actually limiting everyone. No, you're not. There's still community colleges, and there's still opportunities to go to universities that you want to go to. They still do it on a GPA basis and stuff like that. So that's ridiculous. But it's limiting in the fact where it's either get educated and go into debt, or don't. Just don't go to college. It's your choice. Either way, you might be fucked. But being able to have more equal opportunity is an overall benefit. I don't see the downside to it. Like, and oh no, we become a little bit more educated. Oh no. I know I'm repeating myself. It's just dumb. Like I still have yet to find a good argument for why we shouldn't have free public college. Well, would you pay for the rich kids too? Yeah. Like, I didn't like Pete Buttigieg's like, if families make above this much, they have to pay tuition. I'm like, well, they already pay into our system. Why do they get? Why don't they get free education? Besides, not to mention, like, it's public education I'm talking about. Most rich families are going to pay for their kid to go to private institutions. So I'm not worried about that. And yeah, what fuck it, like, the kids aren't the one that made the money, but I'm getting really semantical here. Whew, that was a rant. You wouldn't think I actually wrote notes for this, but I did. But my mind was just like, you gotta say more, motherfucker, and so I did. Free public college, like, it's a no-brainer. Other societies have been able to make it work. And even then, even if they have to pay a little bit, it's like $42 equivalent to the United States and how we pay $3,000. Oh, yeah, that was the other thing. Okay, I'm sorry. But how people are going to be like, well, when you go to college, you need to understand hard work. Like, look, me personally, I'm speaking anecdotally here. Like, I worked full-time, and I went to school full-time. And it reflects on my GPA too. Neither here nor there. Like, I paid out of pocket, and I paid about a good ton at San Diego State. If I went to UCSD, I would have paid more and probably not been able to afford it without taking out loans. Oh, and I was also living with my parents at the time, so that helps. I don't understand why someone shouldn't have a part-time job, being able to pay for an apartment and go to school comfortably. Like, people are financially stressed in the United States as it is. What, 76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and this is before the pandemic? There's no reason why we shouldn't have public college, and free health care, or health free at the point of access. If anyone else has anything to add on, I'd greatly appreciate it. I'm going to end it right here. Please, I hope y'all have a good day. Enjoy leftism, because I do.